Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Munmun Bhattacharya. Coming up in the next hour, Donald Trump rules out another presidential debate against Kamala Harris after polls indicate Harris performed better than him in Tuesday's debate. United States imposes sanctions on suppliers to Pakistan's ballistic missile program, including multiple China-based companies. Russia expels 6 British diplomats it accuses of spying on a day UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer is to hold talks with US President Joe Biden at the White House on Ukraine. Prime Minister Narendra Modi hosts India's Paralympics contingent at his residence. Players share moments of joy, sorrow and victory. After an astounding face-to-face presidential debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris in Philadelphia 2 nights ago, and Fox News' offer to host another one, all eyes are on the possibility of another televised debate between the two. But the question is whether it will happen as differences persist between the two aspirants. Here is Akhilesh Suman's report on how the two aspirants see the evolving situation.
Confident after gaining a clear edge in Tuesday's presidential debate in Philadelphia, Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris is yearning for another showdown with Donald Trump. Harris's confidence is also buoyed by the fact that many influential names associated with Donald Trump in the past have jumped the ship.
Over 200 people who worked for President George H.W. Bush, President George W. Bush, John McCain, and Mitt Romney have endorsed me for president. 2 nights ago, Donald Trump and I had our first debate. And I believe we owe it to the voters to have another debate.
Trump is putting up a brave face. He has already declared victory in the ABC News debate. Now, McDonald's has become an unlikely new battleground as Team Trump has demanded evidence to prove Harris's claim that she worked at the popular fast food chain while in college.
She worked at McDonald's and she was working so hard. There's only one problem. She didn't work at McDonald's. She's a liar. Liar. As everyone saw 2 nights ago, we had a monumental victory over Comrade Kamala Harris in the presidential debate. So because we've done 2 debates and because they were successful, there will be no third debate.
Observers feel that Trump might have reservations confronting Harris again because the post-debate polls have put Harris on front foot. According to the poll, Kamala Harris leads Republican Donald Trump 47% to 42% for November 5 polls. Nevertheless, the next pit stop in this high-octane presidential campaign is supposed to be on 1st of October when vice presidential running mates Democratic Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Republican Senator J.D. Vance will square off against each other on CBS News. Akhilesh Suman's report for DD India.
US President Joe Biden will host the 4th in-person Quad Leaders Summit in his hometown, Wilmington, Delaware, on the 21st of September. The summit comes as Biden eyes his foreign policy legacy in his final months as a one-term president after dropping out of the 2024 US election and effectively handing the Democratic Party nomination to his Vice President Kamala Harris. White House spokesperson said the president is looking forward to welcoming Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and Prime Minister Kishida Fumio of Japan. The Quad Leaders Summit will focus on bolstering the strategic convergence on Indo-Pacific and delivering concrete benefits in health security, natural disaster response, maritime security, high-quality infrastructure, critical and emerging technologies, climate and clean energy, and cybersecurity. The White House said that India will be hosting the next Quad summit in 2025.
At the beginning of this administration, President Biden made the decision to take the Quad to the leader level, and next weekend, President Biden will host the 4th in-person Quad Leader Summit in Wilmington, Delaware. The President looks forward to welcoming Prime Minister of Australia, Prime Minister of India, and the Prime Minister of Japan. This will be President Biden's first time hosting foreign leaders in Wilmington as president, a reflection of his deep personal relationships with each of the Quad leaders and the importance of the Quad to all of our countries.
Our correspondent Amritpal Singh now joins us from New Delhi for more on this. Amrit, we heard the White House spokesperson announcing a Quad summit in Biden's hometown in Delaware. In terms of venue, it will be the first time that Biden will be hosting foreign leaders there. Before we come to the substance, how should we see the choice of the venue?
Well, it is his hometown, and Wilmington is where he comes from in Delaware. And as he prepares to step down from office or demit office after his term expires, he's trying to burnish his legacy on foreign policy. And also, as you know, US is in the midst of election. So, there is, though it's not stated, but it is, he would want to use it to send a political signaling that I wasn't weak on foreign policy, especially China has become a big issue. So a free and fair Indo-Pacific, and in the Indo-Pacific, if anybody, it's China, which is the aggressor. So there are various angles to it, and he would want to keep it from, so the choice of Delaware reflects. Also, he would want to give a personal angle to the relationship with the 4 leaders, as 2 of the leaders demit office, one President Biden and the other Fumio Kishida, as he also steps down and doesn't go in for a re-election come September 29th. So I think this is the messaging by choosing, by the choice of venue.
Fair enough. Also, the Quad summit is being hosted by Biden a little over a month before he demits office. What does it say of the importance that all the 4 Quad leaders attach to the Quad as a whole in the Indo-Pacific?
Quad is an important forum, and is increasingly it's emerging as an important forum. Though they say they are not a security forum, but yes, maritime security, a free and fair Indo-Pacific is core at the core of the grouping. Now, they will, of course, discuss, other things like clean energy, developing disaster-resilient infrastructure, maritime security, and other things. But the core is to build a coalition or grouping of like-minded countries which ensure that this important region is free from dominance by any single player or any unilateral dominance. So that is at the core of this grouping. And I think President Biden, by calling this summit, and India was supposed to host it this year, but on President Biden's insistence that he would want to host it, remember he had hosted the first in-person meeting in 2021. The President Biden, by hosting it, is basically trying to put his weight behind it. And even if President Biden goes, it has become an institutional mechanism, so to speak, and has gathered its own steam. So the important theater of Indo-Pacific will remain a core for collaboration between these 4 countries.
We'll leave it at that. Amritpal Singh reporting from New Delhi. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is in the United States for talks with US President Joe Biden on issues of mutual and global concern. The US President will host British Prime Minister at the White House on Friday. The leaders will have an in-depth discussion on a range of global issues of mutual interest, including continuing robust support to Ukraine, securing a hostage release and ceasefire deal to end the Gaza conflict, protecting international shipping in the Red Sea from Houthi threats, and advancing a free and open Indo-Pacific. Russia's Federal Security Service said it had revoked the accreditation of 6 British diplomats in Moscow on Friday as their actions showed signs of spying and sabotage work. The Federal Security Service reported that a British Foreign Office department in London overseeing Eastern Europe and Central Asia was coordinating the escalation of the political and military situation. The department was also tasked with ensuring Russia's loss in its conflict against Ukraine. It added the facts revealed give grounds to consider the activities of British diplomats as threatening the security of the Russian Federation. Spain will host a meeting on Friday, bringing together ministers from Muslim and European countries to push forward a two-state solution for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The gathering will include members of the Arab Islamic Contact Group for Gaza, such as Egypt, Qatar, Saudi Arabia and Turkey. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez will welcome the attendees at his residence before the discussions led by Foreign Minister José Manuel Albares take place in Madrid. EU Foreign Affairs Chief Joseph Borrell will also participate. The meeting aims to bolster international engagement in Middle East peace efforts and build consensus around the two-state solution. This follows Spain's recognition in May of a Palestinian state alongside Ireland and Norway. The United States State Department on Thursday imposed sanctions on suppliers to Pakistan's ballistic missile program. The sanctions also include China-based bombs. Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said in a statement that the Beijing Research Institute of Automation for Machine Building Industry had worked with Pakistan to procure equipment for testing rocket motors for the Shaheen 3 and Ababil systems and potentially for larger systems. The sanctions also targeted firms alongside Pakistan-based innovative equipment and a Chinese national for knowingly transferring equipment under missile technology restrictions. Washington similarly targeted 3 China-based companies with sanctions in October 2023 for supplying missile-applicable items to Pakistan. The Biden administration on Thursday imposed fresh sanctions on 16 Venezuelan officials. It comes in response to widespread voter fraud in the country's election that saw President Nicolas Maduro's victory, which has been rejected by Washington as well as several European and Latin American nations. Among those sanctioned include the judge and the prosecutor who authorized the arrest warrant for the opposition presidential candidate Edmundo González Urrutia, who has since fled Venezuela and sought protection in Spain. In addition to Treasury's sanctions, the State Department is also imposing new visa restrictions on Maduro-aligned officials. In response to United States, Caracas rejected the sanctions imposed by Washington as a crime of aggression. A Foreign Ministry statement said that Venezuela rejects in the strongest terms the new crime of aggression committed by the government of the United States of America against Venezuela, seeking to ingratiate himself with a political class that has resorted to fascist and violent practices to overthrow without success the Bolivarian democracy. Boeing's US West Coast factory workers will walk off the job after 96% voted on Thursday in favor of a strike, halting production of the strongest selling jet amid chronic output delays and increasing debt. The workers' first strike since 2008 will start at midnight Pacific time on Friday. At least 2/3 of the unionized workers had to vote in favor of a strike under complicated rules set by the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers. Earlier on Wednesday, Boeing CEO Kelly Ortberg sent a letter to workers urging them to approve the deal, which included a general wage increase of 25%, a $3,000 signing bonus and a pledge to build Boeing's next commercial jet in the Seattle area.
Tonight, our members voted across Puget Sound, Portland, Moses Lake, Victorville, Edwards Air Force Base, and other remote locations. This is about respect, this is about addressing the past, and this is about fighting for our future. Our members rejected the contract by 94.6%.
Still to come on DD India News Hour. Russian President Vladimir Putin warns the West it was at risk of entering into war with Russia. North Korea releases rare photos of President Kim at a uranium facility. Wildfires are slow after wreaking havoc near Los Angeles, but authorities warn the danger isn't over yet.
United States is going into its 60th quadrennial presidential election. What are the implications of this election? What is the state of democracy in the United States? Can India and the United States work together?
What are the values? Do we still hold true the democratic values that we did when the Constitution was and our forefathers were drafting the Constitution? Are we evolving, right? And what does it mean to evolve?
The relationship between India and the United States, as you point out, is critical. And what is foundational to that relationship is the common democratic values and the value of a vote, a single vote in each country.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Munmun Bhattacharya. Russian President Vladimir Putin issued a stark warning on Thursday, stating that allowing Ukraine to attack Russian territory with Western-supplied long-range missiles would lead to direct conflict between Russia and NATO. He asserted that such a move would significantly alter the scope of the war, will make the West an active participant, leading to a significant and dangerous expansion of the conflict.
It is not about allowing the Ukrainian regime to strike Russia with these weapons or not. It is about making a decision about whether NATO countries are directly involved in the military conflict or not. If this decision is made, it will mean nothing less than the direct participation of the NATO countries, the United States and the European countries in the war in Ukraine. This is their direct participation, and this, of course, significantly changes the very essence, the very nature of the conflict. This will mean that the NATO countries, the United States and the European countries are fighting Russia. And if this is so, then, bearing in mind the change in the very essence of this conflict, we will make appropriate decisions based on the threats that will be created for us.
Ukraine has accused Russia of using strategic bombers to target a civilian grain vessel in the Black Sea, just outside Ukrainian waters and near NATO member Romania. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that a Russian missile hit a wheat cargo bound for Egypt on Thursday, marking the first such attack on a grain ship since the conflict began. While no casualties were reported, the US ambassador and the UN condemned the strike, calling it a threat to global food security. Ukrainian officials described the attack as a blatant violation of international law, and the damaged vessel, identified as the Aya, sustained significant damage. Russia has not yet responded to the allegations. Romania's foreign ministry on Friday said that the attack on the grain ship was an unprecedented escalation by Russia in its conflict against Ukraine. Russia claimed that its air forces and artillery forces have attacked airport infrastructure and energy facilities used to support operations by Ukrainian troops on Thursday. Russian Defense Ministry said its air defense forces have shot down 59 drones over the past day. Further, Russian forces said they continued to rout Ukrainian army troops in West Russia's Kursk region bordering Ukraine as they recaptured 10 settlements from Ukraine. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un visited a uranium enrichment facility, calling for the development of new centrifuges to increase weapons-grade material production, further advancing the country's nuclear arsenal. Kim's visit to the Nuclear Weapons Institute offered a rare look inside North Korea's banned nuclear program. He emphasized the importance of expanding the arsenal for both self-defense and preemptive strikes, citing escalating threats from the US and its allies. Kim also oversaw the test of a new 600 mm multiple launch rocket system and guided a special forces drill. North Korea's nuclear weapons programs are banned by United Nations Security Council resolutions, but the country is believed to have several sites for enriching uranium. South Korea has strongly condemned North Korea over the uranium enrichment facility and Kim's vows to boost his country's nuclear capability.
North Korea's illegal development of nuclear weapons is a clear violation of multiple United Nations Security Council resolutions and poses a serious threat to peace on the Korean Peninsula and the world. Under no circumstances will we or the international community never accept North Korea's possession of nuclear weapons, and North Korea must clearly recognize this.
Senegal's President Bassirou Diomaye Faye has dissolved the opposition-led parliament, paving the way for a snap legislative election. Faye announced the move in a televised address on Thursday, asking voters to give his party a mandate to carry out the systemic transformation that he had promised. The new election will take place on the 17th of November. Faye won the vote in March to become Africa's youngest elected leader, less than 2 weeks after he was released from prison. He had promised to fight corruption and introduce economic reforms that prioritize national interest. 24 soldiers and police officers from Jamaica arrived in Haiti on Thursday to join a UN-backed mission led by Kenya to fight powerful criminal gangs. Jamaica formally pledged 200 personnel for the UN-backed mission in March, but the long-delayed security force has been slow to deploy and its initial mandate will expire in under a month if it is not renewed. The mission is being led by Kenya, which is so far the only country to have deployed to Haiti, with 400 police officers out of a total pledge of 1,000. The Belize Defense Force deployed 2 senior officers to Jamaica ahead of an assignment to Haiti as part of its contribution to the security mission. "100 wooden-looking elephants based on actual Indian elephants are providing a surreal but much required rendezvous with wildlife to New York City residents. Crafted by Indian artists, these elephants have been distributed throughout a New York City neighborhood to promote positive cohabitation between man and animal.
This ain't the great Indian jungles from the Western Ghats. Instead, these life-size replicas are rather enthralling people in the city of New York. The Great Elephant Migration features elephant sculptures crafted by nearly 200 indigenous artists from throughout southern India. Based on actual individual Indian elephants, they range in size from baby to adult and can be touched by spectators. All have an ID nameplate.
Each of the elephants is based on a real wild elephant that lives in the tea and coffee plantations of South India. The idea is that if people in rural India are able to live with elephants, surely people in other parts of the world can live with smaller, less dangerous animals.
The effort is actually paying off. Passerby agree that the elephants remind them of the importance of other living beings that should matter to the humans.
We're hoping, and everybody's hoping, that with this exhibition it'll just stir a little within them to think about preservation and conservation. It's just so very important to expose everybody here to it.
Yeah, it's, I hope the impact when people see this, it's, yes, to save the elephants, to be aware of the need to save them for many reasons. Not are they just beautiful animals, but there's a balance in nature that we as mankind disturb constantly.
The elephants are culled together from an indigenous invasive weed called lantana. Already, $500,000 has been generated from the sales. The proceeds are going to a non-governmental organization dedicated to conservation work. The elephants will remain in New York's meatpacking district until October 20th. Bureau Report, DD India.
Let's now take a look at other stories making news around the world. Ending his 12-day-long trip to Asian countries, Pope Francis departed from Singapore on Friday. Earlier, Pope interacted with the elderly people and interacted with the youth of the country as well. This was one of the historic visits of any pontiff from Rome to Indonesia, Papua New Guinea and East Timor after a gap of decades. Malaysian police will summon the top management of an Islamic business group, Global Ikhwan Services and Business, after children rescued from charity homes allegedly run by the firm suffered injuries consistent with sexual and physical assault. So far, the police has rescued 402 children and youths in raids carried out at 20 premises run by the conglomerate. And OpenAI has introduced new AI models aimed at investing more time in problem solving before providing answers. Referred to as quote-unquote strawberry, they are officially named O1 and O1 Mini. The O1 model will be accessible in ChatGPT starting Thursday. Weather updates from across the globe now. Wildfires that burnt dozens of mountain homes near Los Angeles slowed on Thursday with cooler temperatures, but authorities warned the blazes still threatened suburbs. According to the map we are showing you on the screen, there are around 3 areas where damage has been reported by wildfires. Driven by triple-digit heat, gusting winds and tinder-dry vegetation scorching over 400,000 hectares of land, the Bridge Fire, California's largest current wildfire, swept through communities in the San Gabriel Mountains. The blaze have destroyed over hundreds of houses in Mount Baldy and Wrightwood. The Bolivian government invested in cloud seeding to help increase rainfall in the wildfire-hit region of Santa Cruz. Airplanes from the Bolivian Air Force dispersed silver iodide into the air to encourage cloud formation and precipitation to ease the wildfires that have ravaged over 3 million hectares of land so far. International brigades and fire experts have also arrived to support local firefighters. Hurricane Francine weakened into a post-tropical cyclone on Thursday afternoon as it moved north across the Mississippi, soaking the state and its neighbors in heavy rain after slamming Louisiana coast as a dangerous Category 2 hurricane, causing widespread power outages for hundreds of thousands of homes and businesses. In Myanmar, hundreds of villagers waded or swam through chin-high waters, fleeing severe floods around the remote capital Naypyidaw on Friday as Vietnam began clearing up after Typhoon Yagi. Over 230 people were killed in Vietnam and Thailand, and floodwaters from swollen rivers have inundated cities in both countries. Time for another breather still to come on DD India News Hour. Analysis on Sri Lankan presidential election on the 21st of September. In J&K Assembly polls, scrutiny of nominations for the third phase of polling on the 1st of October takes place today.
On Voice of Global South this week, after the coronavirus, a new deadly virus is detected in China. Are we on the cusp of a new pandemic? A 4-day work week is catching on. Are you ready for it? And Mexico becomes the first country in the world to allow election of judges at all levels. Tune in at 7 p.m. on Saturday, 14th of September.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Munman Padacharya. A recap of the headlines. Donald Trump rules out another presidential debate against Kamala Harris after polls indicate Harris performed better than him in Tuesday's debate. US imposes sanctions on suppliers to Pakistan's ballistic missile program, including multiple China-based companies. Russia expels 6 British diplomats it accuses of spying on a day UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer is to hold talks with US President Joe Biden at the White House on Ukraine. In Sri Lanka, postal voting for the 2024 presidential election concluded on Thursday. Postal voting took place on the 4th, 5th and 6th of September, and for the voters who were unable to cast their postal ballots on those dates, additional opportunities were provided on Wednesday and Thursday. Local media quoted the Department of Posts as saying that over 694,000 presidential postal ballot papers were received so far. Reports added that 95% of these ballots have already been dispatched to the district returning officers, and the election is scheduled for 21st of this month to elect the 9th executive president. The election, being the first one after the widespread protests that shook the nation in 2022, is being termed a pivotal moment in the nation's political and economic history. The collapse, which witnessed an acute shortage of essentials, led to mass protests and the former president Gotabaya Rajapaksa to flee and resign. As the 17 million voters gear up for the polls next Saturday, the election is expected to be highly contested and influential for Sri Lanka's future. So, what are the key issues of the elections? Let's look at the key issues in Sri Lankan election. IMF deal, a key area of discussion. That's one important issue. Corruption, a major issue under previous regimes. That continues to be an electoral issue. Besides that, Tamil voters would be the ethnic issue as well. Implementation of the 13th Amendment is another. For updates, we had been joined by Dr. Ahmed Muin Faruqi from Colombo. Dr. Ahmed, what are the odds for the front runners in the fray?
Good afternoon, Monmo, and very good afternoon to all our viewers. Primarily speaking, if we talk about the front runners, the incumbent President Ranil Wickremesinghe, he is challenged by the NPP, that is the leftist alliance leader Anurukumara Dissanayaka, and the opposition leader Sajid Premadasa. Now, these three have been holding campaigns right from the last 20 days, 25 days, and they have been doing several of the meetings in and around Colombo as well as the outskirts as well. However, if you ask me about how are the chances with regard to all these candidates, it's very tough as of now with regard to how the experts have been feeling here in Sri Lanka, that no candidate appears to be, a clear front runner to be able to get a popular vote on his own. That is how it appears as of now, but still it's a clear 8 days away from the election. and a lot of things can change over the next 8 days as well. One more.
Francine, you are saying, what is the main issue in this election? And if you could also tell us a little about the voting process and how a winner is decided.
Mudmun, the issues have been plenty ever since the economic crisis, which also had turned into a political crisis also in 2022 with Gotabaya Rajapaksa resigning and fleeing the country. And thereafter, the parliament electing Ranil Wickremesinghe as the president for the remainder of the term. So there have been primarily the issues with regard to the economic crisis, and thereafter how the IMF deal was done. And in addition to that, corruption has been something which Sri Lanka has been facing for quite some time, especially under the previous regimes, with regard to how several of the deals were struck, how the projects were executed. Now, apart from these issues, there have been other long-standing issues which Sri Lanka has been facing. The Tamils issue, especially in the north and the east. In addition to that, there's also the Tamil issue of the Indian origin Tamils, or in the upcountry region, basically who are plantation workers. Apart from this, how the devolution works, especially for the provinces, this is a very important issue. The most important region where the people are talking about is the economy. And this is where the key contestants, the NPP leader as well as the SJB leader, Sajid Premadasa and Anurag Kumar Dissanayaka, they have been talking about the hardship the people had to face, especially in the backdrop of the economic crisis, and how they would go ahead with revamping the economy and alleviating the crisis, alleviating the distress faced by the common man. They're talking of reducing the taxes. They are talking of increasing the salaries of government employees. They're also talking about developing the domestic industry further. At the same time, it may also be recalled that the budget had already included increase of salaries, which was already effected by the government just a few days back. So there have been challenges which the current government was facing, and there will be challenges that will continue to face the new government once it assumes the charge as well.
We'll leave it at that, Dr. Ahmed, reporting from Colombo. Let's get more perspective now to discuss the Sri Lankan presidential election on the 21st of September. We are being joined by Ambassador Gurjeet Singh, former Indian ambassador to Sri Lanka. Such a pleasure to have you, Ambassador Singh, on DD India. What do you make of the presidential contest for starters this time around, and who has the edge and why, according to you?
It's the most interesting election in Sri Lankan history. And I think among the issues that you mentioned, the one issue which needs to be added is the growing disparity between the rich and the poor, which is now really attracting voter attention. As per a poll of earlier this week, the A.K. Dissanayake of the National People's Power is still leading with 36%, followed by Sajid Premadasa at 32%, and a fast rising Ranil Wickremesinghe at 28%. Now in May, Sajid and Dissanayake were at the same level, 38%, and both have lost space since then. Whereas Ranil Wickremesinghe, who was at 18% in May, has come now to 28%. So the sharpest upward curve is for Ranil Wickremesinghe, whereas the other two candidates are still leading but losing ground. Now, Sajid Premadasa has got a wide coalition, including Tamils and Muslims and the poor people of the South, whereas Dissanayake has got the unhappy people with the political system. Ranil Wickremesinghe has gathered together people who believe that he has done a good job in maintaining the economy and stability of the country after a crisis and needs to be allowed to complete the IMF engagement, which still has 2.5 years to go. Now, it is not clear to me how this is going to work, but what the figures say is that nobody is going to win the election in the first round because they need 50% plus. So what will happen is that the second and third preference votes of the third candidate and others will determine this election. Now, That means, as per current standing, how Ranil's supporters vote second and third preference will determine whether Dissanayake will win or Premadasa will. But if Ranil overcomes Premadasa and comes second, then the second preference of Premadasa will win. But it is evident to me that neither the supporters of Premadasa nor Vikramasinghe will support Dissanayake. So basically the battle is among the second place to who comes second in the first round and then has a shot to win second and third preference votes and beat Dissanayake in the second round.
Can't get more interesting than this, Ambassador. If you look at what's at stake for India, on a recent visit to Colombo, you would remember that India's National Security Advisor, Mr. Doval, had met the four front runners in the Sri Lankan presidential election. Would India be hoping for a dispensation that protects its security as well as economic interests?
So I think this time India is playing a level game with no preferences and engaging all the parties, which I think is very good. Even AKD from the NPP has visited India a few months ago. And I'm glad both the EAM and the NSA have met everybody when they go to Colombo. Now, the first major thing India wants is economic stability. Please remember, we have lent $4 billion. We don't want economic disruption. So we want the IMF program to be completed. So this is where Premadasa and Vikramasinghe promised to complete that. But AKD says he will try to rework it. But I think that is more of an election gimmick. He also knows that he can't get out of that. The second issue is the federalism of the 13th Amendment and its implementation, which then boils down to Tamil rights. Now, the Tamils this time are not united. There are some supporting Premadasa, some supporting Vikramasinghe, some have put up their own independent candidate. But what is clear is that the Tamil provinces, north and the east, are giving very little credibility to Dissanayake. He has no support of the minorities. So the Tamils prefer Premadasa or Vikramasinghe for implementing what is good for them. Besides this, I think there are foreign policy issues and a level economic playing field which India would desire. On the level playing field, I think all three recognize that India has been very supportive when the chips were down. So hopefully they will play level between India and China and others. But there is no doubt that China will remain an important factor in Sri Lanka.
Oh yes, I was coming to that, if I may intervene here, Ambassador, that how do you think China is seeing this election? Because if we look at Sri Lanka's post-independence history, it becomes clear that China engages more actively when centre-left parties or politicians are in power there. And here, Mr. Dissanayake, I think, would represent that part of the political divide.
I think the NPP has a special relationship with China because they have been against foreign investments and stuff like that so far. They will need to change. I think China is watching also closely because they have a lot of finance invested in Sri Lanka. But I think more than China, it is India, because sometimes India draws negative nationalist sentiment during elections. This is what Rajapaksa's SLPP is trying to do. China does not attract that in our neighborhood. So I think we need to be more careful, but I don't think China is a lead player in Sri Lanka at this moment.
Oh, that will be great news for many of the watchers here as far as the Indo-Pacific region and India's southern neighborhood is concerned, particularly those who don't approve of the way in which China has been using various tactics to get various countries under a debt trap, including Sri Lanka. We leave it at that, Ambassador Gurjeet Singh. Such a pleasure to have you on DD India. Now, updates on the upcoming assembly elections to be held in the Indian Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Scrutiny of nominations will be held for the third phase of assembly polls in the North Indian Union Territory. The candidates can withdraw the nomination papers by or before the 17th of September. As many as 483 candidates have filed the nomination papers across 40 assembly constituencies of 7 districts of J&K. Polling for the third phase will be held on the 1st of October 2024. The Supreme Court of India on Friday granted bail to Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal, who has been jailed for the last 6 months in the alleged liquor policy scam. The court set bail at 10 lakh rupees and imposed a condition that Kejriwal must not make any public comments regarding the case. The decision was made by a bench led by Justice Surya Kant, who also included Justice Ujjal Bhuyan. So that's the constitution of the bench. Kejriwal was arrested by the CBI on the 26th of June as part of an investigation. The Delhi High Court had previously upheld his arrest, but the Supreme Court's ruling today allowed him to be released while the case continues. Now a look at other stories making news. Vice President of India, Jagdeep Dhankar, arrived as chief guest at the Central University of Rajasthan in Ajmer to preside over a discussion on the role of higher education in Viksit Bharat at the rate 2047. On the occasion, the Vice President also interacted with professors and students of the university. India's Niti Aayog inaugurated Poshan Mah under the Sampurnta Abhiyan in Udalguri district in the northeastern state of Assam. The event featured awareness campaigns, educational activities and displays featuring locally available healthy foods. The Poshan tracker was introduced to Anganwadi and Asha workers. Time for another breather on DD India News Hour. Coming up after that, para-athletes share memorable gifts with the Prime Minister at his residence in New Delhi. Nadal pulls out of Lava Cup due to fitness issues. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Munman Bhattacharya. At the International Conference on Green Hydrogen exhibition, hydrogen-powered long-haul buses and trucks are showcased as part of pilot projects by the Automotive Research Association of India. With 40 vehicles under evaluation, these tests in different climates aim to optimize hydrogen systems for heavy-duty transport, pushing India closer to green, sustainable transportation. Tapas Bhattacharya reports.
Hydrogen is the new buzzword when it comes to India and its way of becoming net neutral by 2070. The National Green Hydrogen Mission is a huge step for the country, and the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy is working in tandem with the private players. And to talk more about that, I have with me the Joint Secretary, Mr. Yadav. Tell us, we are talking about green hydrogen mission. We're talking about how to take the country forward when it comes to renewable energy. It's expected to play a major role. How does your government see this?
Electrolyzers will play a key part in this generation of green hydrogen. And under the National Green Hydrogen Mission, what we have done is that we have awarded 3,000 megawatt capacity of electrolyzers. So this capacity has already been awarded. We'll be supporting this capacity per annum for a period of 5 years. So the cumulative capacity that will be supporting will be 15,000 megawatt of electrolyzer production capacity. Now these plants are at various stages. Some of these plants are at advanced stage of commissioning.
Private-public partnership coming in and with the ministry giving them that boost, that's a huge point. With India have already stated that by 2070 they will be net neutral. Do you believe that we are on course to meet that challenge?
Yeah, right. So in addition to what I told, the electrolyzers, now we have again have incentives for production of green hydrogen. Till now we have awarded around 412,000 tons capacity of green hydrogen production. And we are also looking at different use cases of green hydrogen and its derivatives. So we are launching pilot projects, for example, in mobility sector, how to use green hydrogen in heavy duty automobiles, buses, trucks.
Mr. Yadav has pointed out, the Joint Secretary has said that, the ministry is going full throttle when it comes to the green hydrogen mission, making sure that India is on course to achieve the net zero target by 2070. With camera person Monty, this is Taposh Bhattacharya for DD India from Delhi.
Time now for all the sports action, and my colleague Deepika Mehta will take you through that. Deepika, it seems catharsis and some freewheeling conversation that the Prime Minister had with India's Paralympic contingent, isn't it?
Indeed, it was a very interesting conversation with the Prime Minister that the Paralympians had, as Prime Minister Narendra Modi hosted India's Paralympics contingent at his residence in New Delhi. The long interaction with all the athletes had a mixed session where moments of fun and sorrow both were shared with the Prime Minister, along with unique gifts and key advices. Here's a report. Prime Minister Narendra Modi hosted India's Paralympics contingent that returned from Paris 2024 with a rich medal haul boasting a total number of 29 medals that includes 7 gold, 9 silver and 13 bronze medals. During the interaction with the Indian contingent, the players shared their experiences, exchanged gifts and also enjoyed the moment to its fullest with the Prime Minister. Paralympics gold medalist Sumit Antal dedicated his gold medal to Prime Minister Modi and thanked him for his continuous words of encouragement.
मैं back to back second gold medal है सर मेरा. मेरे को भी याद है सर, जब टोक्यो में गोल्ड लेके आए तो आपने प्रॉमिस लिया था कि ऐसे ऐसे 2 गोल्ड और चाहिए मेरे को. तो ये दूसरा सर आपके लिए है.
Navdeep Singh, who bagged a gold in javelin throw, also shared his experience and said that when other players were winning medals, he got really nervous.
मैं F41 कैटेगरी में जेवलिन थ्रो करता हूं सर. दूसरी बार पैरालंपिक पार्टिसिपेट कर रहा हूं. जैसे ही मेडल आने शुरू हुए ना सर, तो एक मन में घबराहट होनी शुरू हो गई थी कि सबके आ रहे, मेरा क्या होगा. तो सर पर फिर भी सर, जैसे सीनियर एथलीट्स थे सर, जैसे सुमित भाई था, अजीत भाई साहब थे, संदीप भाई साहब थे, देवेंद्र सर थे, सबसे सर एक दिन मिलके सर एक्सपीरियंस गेन किया सर कि आप कैसा फील करते हो, मेरे को क्या करना चाहिए. और सर एंड तक आते आते सर मैं बिल्कुल फ्री माइंड होके खेलने का. वाह.
Sharad Kumar, who bagged a silver in men's high jump T63 category, said that all Paralympians always look forward to meeting the Prime Minister after the games.
मैं एज एन एथलीट ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि जब से पैरा मूवमेंट स्टार्ट हुआ है, मैं तब से जुड़ा हुआ इससे, और आज जिस लेवल पे सारे एथलीट्स हैं, मुझे खुद प्राउड फीलिंग होता है इन सबको, जिस तरह सब जाते हैं, कोचेस, फिजियोथेरेपिस्ट, सब एक टीम. जब अब हम लोग बाहर जाते हैं तो इंडिया को अब ऐसे लोग देख रहे हैं कि ये पहले सोचते थे ये आगे आ सकते हैं, लेकिन अब पैरा में इन्होंने कैटेगराइज कर दिया कि इंडिया एक स्पोर्टिंग नेशन ऑलरेडी है. आपसे मिलने और जाने से पहले आप जब सबसे बात करते हो और फिर आने के बाद सबसे मिलते हैं, आई थिंक सारे मेडलिस्ट, सारे एथलीट यही सोचते हैं कि हमें यही मौका मिले. सर लोग पैरा को अभी तक अपनाए नहीं जिस तरह आपने अपनाया है.
During the freewheeling conversation with the athletes, Prime Minister also shared a key message and said that specially abled persons should be treated with utmost respect.
उनकी तरफ देखने का दृष्टिकोण बदले. वे उनके प्रति सम्मान के भाव से देखे, दया भाव से नहीं. वो हमें मंजूर नहीं है. दया भाव नहीं चाहिए, सम्मान से देखे, मैं तुमसे कम नहीं हूं. ये मिजाज मुझे देश में पैदा करना है.
All the athletes enjoyed this memorable visit to Prime Minister's residence, and to make it even more memorable, the players also shared some gifts with the Prime Minister as they take back home a bag full of memories and experiences with them. Sports Desk, DD India. In tennis, Rafael Nadal will not compete at the Laver Cup next week in Berlin. The Laver Cup said a replacement player for Team Europe would be announced soon to join other stars including Carlos Alcaraz and Daniel Medvedev. The Laver Cup pits a European team against a world team. Bjorn Borg and John McEnroe will captain the two 6-player squads as they have in all the 6 previous editions.
The competition takes place between the 20th and the 22nd of September this year. So those were the main highlights of the day. Back to you, Monu.
Thanks, Deepika, for that. Let's move on and now the 20th edition of the joint military exercise between India and the USA, Yuddha Abhyas 2024, is currently underway in the western Indian state of Rajasthan. It is an annual exercise held alternately between India and the USA. The Indian Army contingent is represented by a battalion of the Rajput Regiment. The US contingent is represented by the troops of 124 Battalion of the Alaska-based 11th Airborne Division of the US Army. That's it then in this edition of DD India News Hour, but do share your thoughts with us on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. This app is available on both Android and iOS platforms, so you can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. This is Munman Bhattacharya from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.